Welcome to the Mind Spark, bringing you the latest news from around the world. Breaking news. Beijing has officially accepted a groundbreaking proposal from Taipei, marking a pivotal moment in history. This proposal is not just a document, it represents a new chapter in cross-strait relations. For decades, the Taiwan Strait has been a symbol of tension, a line between two governments with competing claims, each asserting its own sovereignty. Today that line remains, but a bridge is being proposed. This bridge is not just physical, it symbolizes a potential connection of ideas and futures. The world is watching, holding its breath, as this unprecedented move unfolds before our eyes. The agreement, called the Evergreen Accord, outlines a framework for unprecedented economic and cultural cooperation, aiming to foster mutual growth. It avoids the core issue of sovereignty, focusing instead on building trust through shared interests, hoping to pave the way for future dialogue. Leaders on both sides call it a historic step toward peace, but critics warn of hidden risks, questioning the true intentions behind this accord. Is this a genuine breakthrough or a strategic trap? The answer is far from clear, and only time will reveal the true nature of this agreement. This is the most significant diplomatic opening in a generation, a gamble that cooperation can succeed where confrontation failed, a hope for lasting peace. Tonight, we break down what just happened, why China said yes, and what it means for the world, analyzing every angle of this complex situation. We'll look at global reactions from cautious optimism to skepticism as nations weigh the potential outcomes of this agreement and the potential impact on the critical semiconductor industry, a sector vital to the global economy and technological advancement. The world has changed overnight, and we're here to explain what happens now, as we stand on the brink of a new era in international relations. To truly understand the headlines we see today, we need to travel back in time to 1949, a year that changed the course of East Asian history forever. That was when the long and brutal Chinese Civil War finally ended, leaving the country divided and its people facing an uncertain future. Mao Zedong's communist forces emerged victorious, seizing control of the vast Chinese mainland and declaring the birth of the People's Republic of China. Meanwhile, Chiang Kai-shek and his nationalist government retreated to the island of Taiwan, bringing with them soldiers, officials, and refugees, each side claiming to be the legitimate government of all China. For decades, both governments insisted there was only one China, but fiercely disagreed over who had the right to rule it, fueling tension across the strait. In the early years, the United States and many Western allies recognized Taiwan as the official government of China. But in the 1970s, global politics shifted dramatically. President Nixon's historic visit to China and the U.S. decision to switch diplomatic recognition to Beijing in 1979 set the stage for the complex, ambiguous relationship we see today. To balance this shift, the U.S. Congress passed the Taiwan Relations Act, pledging to help Taiwan defend itself and creating a policy of so-called strategic ambiguity that still shapes U.S. policy. In the 1980s and 90s, Taiwan underwent a remarkable transformation, democratizing and developing a unique Taiwanese identity, which fueled growing calls for autonomy and even independence. But Beijing has always drawn a hard red line at any move toward formal independence, repeatedly threatening to use force if necessary to prevent it. Despite growing economic ties, booming trade, and cultural exchanges between the two sides, deep mistrust and suspicion have persisted for decades. Using its growing global influence, Beijing has worked tirelessly to isolate Taiwan diplomatically, blocking its participation in international organizations and pressuring countries to cut official ties. That's why today's agreement is so significant, a radical departure from the past, focusing on practical cooperation and dialogue instead of political posturing and threats. It signals a new calculation on both sides as leaders weigh the risks and rewards of engagement in a rapidly changing world. The world is watching closely, wondering if this fragile shift can endure, or if old tensions will resurface. The stakes could not be higher, for China, for Taiwan, and for the entire global community. What's in the Evergreen Accord? It's a carefully crafted document from Taiwan's pragmatic administration. It sidesteps sovereignty, focusing on economic and cultural ties, the core new economic cooperation and innovation zones in select cities, with incentives for green energy, biotech, and AI, expanded trade, lower tariffs, and deep economic integration aim to make conflict unthinkable. Massive student exchanges, joint media projects, and environmental cooperation foster shared identity. Permanent liaison offices in Taipei and Beijing provide direct communication. It's a creative, realistic path to lower tensions without forcing either side to abandon core principles. Why did China accept? For years, Beijing relied on pressure, military drills, economic punishment. But that strategy backfired, strengthening Taiwan's identity and US ties. Now China faces economic headwinds and tech restrictions from the West. The accord offers access to Taiwan's semiconductor industry and innovation, potentially revitalizing China's economy. Economically binding Taiwan to the mainland could make future integration easier. Diplomatically, it lets Beijing present itself as a peaceful actor, countering the aggressive China narrative. It could divide the Western alliance and boost China's global image. Internally, it's a policy win, shifting focus from economic woes to diplomatic success. The accord is a strategic pivot, trading coercion for long-term influence. It's a gamble, but Beijing believes it's worth taking. The world is watching to see if this new approach will last. The news hit Washington like a political earthquake, sending shockwaves through the corridors of power and igniting a flurry of urgent meetings and late-night phone calls. The White House publicly welcomed the reduction in tensions, emphasizing the importance of dialogue, but also reiterated its unwavering commitment to Taiwan's security and democratic values. Officials stressed that any resolution must be peaceful, transparent, and most importantly, have the full consent of the people of Taiwan. Yet behind closed doors, US officials remain deeply wary, questioning whether this is a genuine peace overture or a sophisticated Trojan horse designed to shift the balance of power in the region. Skepticism runs deep, fueled by China's recent actions in Hong Kong and its assertive moves in the South China Sea, which have eroded trust among American policymakers. On Capitol Hill, the response is sharply divided. Some lawmakers praise the accord as a rare diplomatic breakthrough, while others warn it could dangerously undermine Taiwan's autonomy and set a risky precedent. There are growing concerns that deeper economic ties will leave Taiwan increasingly vulnerable to Chinese economic coercion and political pressure, threatening its independence. In response, some voices in Washington are calling for increased military aid to Taiwan and tougher measures to deter Chinese aggression, arguing that deterrence is the best path to peace. For the US, this moment is a diplomatic balancing act, supporting Taiwan's aspirations without blocking the path to peace, all while remaining vigilant against potential threats. America's long-standing policy of strategic ambiguity has just become even more complicated, forcing policymakers to rethink old assumptions. In the intelligence community, analysts are monitoring every development, knowing that Washington must watch and wait with extraordinary care. The stakes for US influence and credibility in Asia have never been higher, as every move is scrutinized by allies and rivals alike. Around the globe, the world is holding its breath, waiting to see what happens next in this high-stakes geopolitical drama. The region is reacting with a mix of hope and anxiety. Japan welcomes dialogue but worries about China's growing influence and its own security. South Korea sees reduced tensions as good for stability, but remains cautious about China's intentions. ASEAN nations are relieved by lower tensions, but wary, especially those with disputes in the South China Sea. The European Union welcomes the move as a step toward global stability, but is concerned about economic dependence on China. Brussels will push for economic resilience and diversification. Across Asia and Europe, hope is tempered by realism. Everyone is watching to see if this is a true turning point or a temporary pause. The region's security and economic future hang in the balance. The world is hopeful, but not naive. The next steps will be critical. The stakes are global. Two narratives are emerging. The optimists see the accord as a turning point, leaders putting people ahead of old grievances, building interdependence that makes conflict too costly. Economic and cultural ties could build trust, reduce tensions, and transform the Taiwan Strait into a model of coexistence. Taiwan could keep its democracy and autonomy. China gains stability and prosperity. It's a win-win if it works. The skeptics see a trap. China using economic incentives to erode Taiwan's autonomy, slowly gaining leverage for future concessions. They point to Hong Kong as a warning: promises made, freedoms lost. Cultural exchanges could become tools for influence. The accord, they fear, is a subtle path to conquest, not peace. The true intentions behind this agreement remain uncertain. The world must stay vigilant. The stakes for democracy and sovereignty are immense. Only time will tell which narrative prevails. The global economic impact is huge. Taiwan's dominance in semiconductors means the accord eases fears of a supply shock, sending tech stocks soaring. But deeper China-Taiwan integration could create an East Asian economic powerhouse, challenging US and European efforts to reduce dependence. Closer cooperation may accelerate China's tech advancement, raising alarms in the West. In Taiwan, the accord is controversial, hailed as pragmatic by the ruling party, but attacked by the opposition as a threat to sovereignty. In China, it's celebrated as a wise move, boosting national pride. The real test will be in implementation. Internationally, alliances and strategies are being re-evaluated. The US must rethink its Indo-Pacific approach. The assumption of inevitable conflict is now in question. The Evergreen Accord is forcing every major power to reconsider its place in the world. The aftershocks are just beginning. The world is watching, and the future is uncertain.